we live in a world where yoga is a commodity, okay? We live in a world where yoga is an industry. And I'm in this, okay? I make part of this. But there's something that we should never forget, that yoga, it's a set ourselves free from the attachment of self-satisfaction. Yoga, it's trying to get away of these physical desires, to be controlled by the desires of the body and of the mind, and set ourselves free.
So today, my guest is Unmani Ananda. She is a yoga instructor in Dublin, Ireland. And Unmani, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you so much for having me. First of all, a big thank you really to you. It's a pleasure to be over here to talk with you about very important things. Wellness, it's about the human condition, and it's every day important to all of us. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
I'm originally from Portugal. I'm a woman of 40 years old that born a seeker. So from a young age, I was driven by asking hard questions like, what's the meaning of life, Mom? With 7, with her looking at me puzzled, like kids don't think about that. And had a very interesting way of getting into yoga. I think what defines me is to be a seeker. It's to be questioning and testing, and mostly to be at service, bringing something authentic and something that can help others through the journey of life. That it's more complicated than we thought initially.
Wonderful. Tell me a little bit more about a story you touched on when we spoke earlier. You had quite a transformative journey on your own through yoga. You had gotten injured, and you were helped a lot by your yoga practice that you learned how to do. So tell me more about that.
So, as I was saying, I was a seeker in life. So through my life, I went through a very, let's call it the dark side of the moon. I was a very in your face adolescent. I was a little bit in rage with life and always in the run. I would smoke, was always fighting someone or something. Somewhere in the way, I had a car crash around my 20s, a very severe car crash. I was alone driving, and I woke up almost 1 month after in the hospital after a back surgery, and with no idea what I would do with my life after that. And I had a terrible recovery. I had people telling me, well, you will not walk again. I walked again, and that was the moment in my life where faith became something bigger than believing in myself. There was something bigger than me that told me, no, you will walk again, and you have something to do in this life. So several years passed. I was in pain. This happened actually one time, that I was getting out of the car and suddenly my legs shut down. I fall on the floor, and I had to tell to my colleague of work, please take me to the hospital. And he had to carry me inside of the car, drive to the hospital. And I was taking morphine, and after 1 week, okay, I would go back to work. So this was my life in not only physical pain, but in a high level of suffering, especially someone in her 20s that has, I was envisioning my life, the rest of my life being like that or worse, because with age, we decay. And someday I was walking. Actually, I missed one part over here. So, because it's the connection. So, going back somewhere in this journey of trying to figure out life and the meaning of life, and there's much more beyond, having a work, making money, buying things. I quit my job in Portugal and I went to the Netherlands. I was in pain, yes, but I was able to have a functional life. And for me, that was something that I should mark and celebrate. So I draw a small that now I know that it's inside of a lotus flower. And I went to a place and said, please do this tattoo on my back. And there it was. I made my tattoo as a statement of we can go further. There's no limits. And I could overcome that, so I can overcome anything that comes in my way. And I moved back to Portugal. And then I was walking down the street. I look up and I see a symbol similar to what I tattooed in my back. And at that moment, it was an epiphany. I know at that time I knew zero about yoga, okay? I even don't remember. So I walked in straight, I sat, and a beautiful lady came and explains me during 1 hour what was yoga, what they were teaching, everything. No recollection. I don't remember. I just knew that was for me. And I knew that I wanted to start practicing. That day I started. That day was more than probably 15 years ago, 12 years ago, and I never stopped. Every day I practiced yoga.
Wow.
And I think this is very related to yoga itself, the sadhana, the avyasa, as it's called in tradition, that it's something that you practice every day, that it's forging, it's molding yourself through the practice. I knew nothing about the philosophy at that time. I just knew it was for me. From that moment onwards, no pain. My mobility increased in an extraordinary way, not only physically, but mobility in terms of mind, of clarity of mind, of perception, of awareness. I became a joyful person. My initiation name, Unmani Ananda Unmani, it's considered a state of enlightenment among other things. And Ananda, it's a blissful state. So it's like I became that state because it is completely transformative. It is completely bringing you closer and closer to what a human being is when we are free from ego or ahamkara, that it's it's in Sanskrit and in the Samkhya philosophy. Ahamkara would be the one that identifies with itself with something that there's not. So, and it's the doer. So, and we keep identifying ourselves with what we do or what we feel or what we think. I am my emotions, I am my feelings, I am what I do, I identify with my work. And it starts to create that space and, oh no, I'm just observing this. There's something that it's more constant, that it's pure, not in a moral way, but pure in the sense of not being afflicted by matter or the contingencies of life. That's me. So, and I continue that process, and it's a constant transformation, and that's the beauty of yoga. For me, we never get there. There's always something more. Yoga can always give you something more, transform you something more, something into something higher. And I'm sorry, yeah, tangent, I know,
That's fine.
but it's deeply connected
Sure.
with my story and what happened with me. So I
So
had to go there.
it obviously completely transformed your life, and it's something you've been doing every single day. So it must be
Yep.
something powerful. I don't have a yoga background. Maybe the people that are watching this, they might not have it either. I have a background in fitness, but I would like to know more from you. For people like me, what is yoga? What are all the elements of yoga? How does it affect someone's life? What are the aspects of it? What can you tell us about it? At least the way that you teach it.
That's a great question, and a question that will be a point of view, because yoga transformed itself, and everything that I say, it will be in a way limiting, and again, it's a point of view. Okay, so the yoga as I teach, and well, not completely as I teach, but yoga as we know it today, as a class that you go and you have a teacher, it has 100 years. So the first yoga class actually that was created was something around 1918 by Yogendra in a place near Mumbai at Christmas Day. So that was the first yoga class, with the idea of we start in a sitting position and after we end up lying down in Shavasana Uttara. It's the first one. So before that, we talk about classical yoga, or a yoga that was taught from master to disciple. They would go and do their sadhana, their practice, and after would go come back. And also you have different branches or lineages of yoga. And yoga, as we know it today, it was extremely influenced by Vivekananda, that came to US, and what he taught as a philosophy has it was influenced in a way by the Western culture and certain ideas of transcendency and oneness comes from Vivekananda in terms of, and Vivekananda never talked about the asana or the positions that we normally see. And when we think about yoga, the first thing that comes is to do those positions and go through 1 hour of doing certain positions or going through a flow. That it's Iyengar and Krishnamacharya that brought and established that way. And I'm sorry, I know I'm going a lot, but it's just to give us the context.
So, am I correct in saying so? The yoga used to be traditionally something, a one-on-one thing where a student would visit the instructor and then practice on their own, and now it's changed where it's more in a class setting, and to be able to interact with more people at a time. It's continuing to evolve that way. Is that how it's going?
I believe it's continuing to evolve in groups as we see it today. And so if we look back, yoga was not even something that was taught to mainstream people like as householders. There was specific people that would dedicate their lives to the practice of yoga, and they would practice austerities. They would be ascetics. So there was people that would vow to stay the rest of their life with the arm up,
Fun. What did it?
and
What did
they
it?
would stay.
I
This
saw this
was
guy. Yeah.
tapas. This was tapa, and so and it's Patanjali, and most of the Hatha Yoga and most of the yoga that we learn today and come to us today, it's based on Yoga Sutra of Patanjali. And Patanjali, he compiled the knowledge of yoga. And he talks about different ways of getting into enlightenment slash liberation. And I think this is important for us, that anything and everything that we call yoga is rooted to the idea at least of transformation towards liberation. And in tradition, this liberation would be to get out of the cycles of life and death. I have that small statue over there that it's Yoga Nataraj, and the circle around it's samsara and represents the cycles of death and life. For us, it can be liberation of the turnings of our mind, liberation from being attached, so attached to the body, so attached to our thoughts, so attached to an identity that someone else created for us. And I believe what it's more important, it's the function of yoga and not the format of yoga, because yoga can assume many different formats. And I believe the main or the first thing that we could read about yoga, it's the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita makes part of the Mahabharata, and the Bhagavad Gita, it's the song of God or the song of the Lord. And it's a battlefield. And in this battlefield, there's Arjuna, that it's the disciple, and Krishna, that it's teaching yoga to Arjuna. And Krishna say there's 4 types of yoga, that it's bhakti yoga, the yoga of devotion, that it's karma yoga, the yoga of action, there is raja yoga, raja yoga, it's the yoga of Patanjali, more or less, and you have dhyana yoga, that it's the yoga of knowledge. And each one of these ones can take you into liberation. So there's many ways or many techniques and practices of yoga. All of them has more or less, in a way or another, the same purpose. We can say to reach the higher realization of the self, higher consciousness, or to be in relation with a unique relation with God, like in Bhakti Yoga. But all of them has a certain soteriological dimension, but it's a dimension that agrees with science in a way. So it was easily accepted by our Western point of view, because the techniques that we execute are an experience that we feel that it works. So they are not only words, and I think that makes a big impact. And nowadays we have studies about how it helps with diabetes, how it helps with mental health, how it helps with recovery. You have yoga as a therapy. So going into my practice, what I teach in a yoga practice, yes, we have the asana, and let's say that in a 1 hour practice, we have 15-20 minutes of yoga and of asana. And before and after that, we have other techniques like kirtanam, that it's singing. It's always done in Sanskrit, and it's focused on the sound as vibration. So it's not about if we have the right tune or if it's beautiful or not. It's about the vibration that we are creating inside and outside. Because if we go to, even if we look at quantum physics, we know that everything is vibration. And Buddha already told that. And Buddha, or Siddhartha Gautama, actually studied Samkhya before he got enlightened. So going back into what's yoga and trying to find a short and probably very limiting answer.
It's obviously much more expansive than I realized, because like I said, my background is in fitness, and when I see yoga classes being taught or in places that I've worked, and it's mostly a physical thing. It's almost it's more geared towards physical fitness in some way, and there's mental elements too. But the way you're describing it, it sounds like there's much more than just the movement of it. There's other parts, other types of yoga that is done throughout the class. That's not just the physical part, right?
Right. And there's one thing, and I will use a word that not everyone likes, but anyway. But physical exercise and spiritual attainment, they are not separate.
I can get behind that. That's sure. Tell me
And
more about that. Sure.
yoga, it's that bringing the two parts together, and one informs the other. And our body, it's our vehicle, and we can look at the body from one point of view, and in terms of spirituality, like the one that limits us, that we are inside of a container and it limits our being, that our being is much more than this and we feel trapped. Or we can look at the body and body as matter. And probably I should go back a little bit. So what it's considered matter, so matter and consciousness, something subtle, something material, what it's material and what potentially talks about and potentially assumes that everyone knows this is matter. It's earth, so earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. So, and we are trapped especially in the intelligence, mind, and false ego. And using the body to tame our mind, to open our intelligence and let go of the false ego. And I just made this up, but I think it makes completely sense.
All right, that's fine.
Because it's through the body that it's like the doors, it's the gateways to reach something higher. The asana, so first asana was only sitting position, okay? That was the only asana that existed. The position, more or less, that I'm sitting right now.
So asana would be, that's a description of a position in yoga, is that correct?
Yeah, initially, yeah, asana was just and only, and potentially talk about it, it's the sitting position to meditate.
Okay.
And it's described how you should be sitting.
Okay.
After And in parallel, you have the 84 asana that were brought, let's say, by Shiva, and you have an evolution of the asana. So, and it comes now a little bit bodybuilding, because like the Surya Namaskara that we know that it's very popularized and it's considered a sequence of positions that it's accepted by everyone, was actually a combination of bodybuilding with a salutation that has a relation to religion. And it was incorporated, and it's used nowadays as beacon of yoga and being extremely traditional. And for me, that it's amazing, and that's perfectly fine, because yoga evolves with humankind, and yoga transforms itself as human beings transform, and our needs are different from the needs of 2000 years ago, and the context is completely different. And in the meantime, I lost track of my thought of where I was going.
That's okay. Well, we were
We were
just kind
talking
of describing,
about
yeah, the different aspects of life.
yoga being, we were talking about yoga being something
Physical
as
or
physical exercise.
right,
And
or something more, right.
so it's in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika that we start seeing descriptions of asana. They describe the Mayurasana, and the Mayurasana, it's the peacock position, as something that will cure all the digestive problems, like amazing position. So, and after it becomes like a warm up, okay, like a way of cleansing your body and prepare yourself to the practice of yoga. Being the practice of yoga, the dimension of what now we call meditation. Dharana, dhyana, samyama, samadhi. So there's a dimension always of purifying the body through kriya or kriya, and asana being a way of basically removing all the blockages of our energetic body. So in yoga, the yoga body, it's made of different layers. One of them, it's the pranamaya kosha, and it's made of nadi, energetic pathways, and chakra, energetic centers that receive and transform energy. And it's correlated with the body, the Annamaya kosha that they call Annamaya kosha as the body made of food. So
Okay.
all the asana were a way of cleaning as other, or unblocking our body, and maybe reaching out to the samskara of people that are the mental patterns, let's say, like the habits that we create and are unhealthy, or the tendencies that we bring from previous generations, or the way that we build ourselves by pressure of society, with media, with social media, and shape ourselves and create ways of us acting that are first unconscious, because we don't think about, it just happened. I just react in that way. I don't know why, it's me. So many times we hear that. It's not you. It's a pattern that you created that you can change. And I know that I'm almost going into PNL, but actually it's that there's a mental pattern, or neuroscience, there's a mental pattern and we want to change it. And through the practice of yoga, you are aware of it and you change it. And
Okay, uh,
it's, I know.
that's a good thing to that I didn't know that. So yoga is also a practice to help change habits and patterns of thinking as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. I stopped smoking
Right, you
just
use it for that.
through the practice of yoga.
Right.
So going yoga, it's a way, or the function of yoga, it's transformation towards liberation, right? Our conditionings, and going to, again, potentially, yoga, chitta vritti nirodha. So yoga, it's the control of the fluctuations or the turnings of our mind. So the moment I identify myself with a pattern, with a way of thinking, I'm becoming less me, knowing that every action that I take, it's rooted in my mind. By tuning down that vritis, they call it vritis, and by allowing my mind to reflect myself, I'm naturally changing my behavior. I'm naturally setting myself free from certain patterns that probably, and from a yogic, or from a certain point of view, are imprinted in the samskara slash karma, depending on the point of view.
That's really neat. In my experience, just getting people to be more observant and know what they're doing as a habitually, and to just to be more observant of how they're thinking and how they're feeling, it's incredibly powerful. So I think that's really cool.
Agree. And eventually to get away of themselves,
Right.
being meaning to get away of being so self-centered, because we are an extremely self-centered society. And it's by doing that, we start to expand a little bit, to be more inclusive, to remove frictions
Mhm.
with others, and stop trying to be the center of the universe and the world revolves around me. And no, life revolves around life. Okay. And I always sometimes like to step back and remind myself, okay, who I am. I'm a little woman in the planet Earth. Planet Earth makes part of the solar system. And suddenly all my problems, they disappeared because they only exist in my mind,
Sure.
and they don't play anything in the big scheme of life.
So is yoga making people more kind to other people? Is it reminding them that we're all connected in some way? Is that happening?
If they are doing yoga, yes.
I could see that happening. Yes. So I'm not a regular yoga practitioner. I've tried a few classes here in the U.S. If I get more into it, do I need to be flexible to start out?
No. um, no, at all. uh, yes, there's the need of, we always want to have our spine straight, but that's why we do asana, okay, to shape our body. And yoga, it's much more than the techniques of yoga. So, and maybe many times we focus too much on mastering the techniques instead of understanding why we are doing them and what they will make of us. So if I'm doing okay, let's go to asana. I'm doing one asana that my teacher reached beyond the toes and I'm on my knees. If your mind is in the right place, if your emotions are aligned, if you are working on yourself, you are practicing yoga.
Mm.
And I love the sentence that it doesn't matter where I start. And if you don't start somewhere, you don't go anywhere.
Right. Right.
And if we don't to run the marathon, we need to train, and we don't expect to train one time or two or three times and after I'm ready.
Right.
So it's much more of having a mindset of getting out. And actually that's it's a very important question, because as a yoga teacher, in a way, we want to bring people outside of the comfort zone, because it's only outside of the comfort zone that we create the fire, the tapa, to ignite transformation. On another hand, we don't want anyone to get injured. And where's the limit? So I always call it wisdom, that there's that point where we are pushing a little bit ourselves, but we are not being too daring, that we risk an injury or we risk all the progress that we have done before.
Sure.
And mostly, if we are very concerned about how flexible I am, or what other people will think about me when I'm practicing yoga, it's a moment to question why. Like, it's okay to not knowing something, or it's okay to fail, or to not be perfect, and that's a consequence of our society too. It's, no, I can't fail, I need to be perfect. Failure, it's what makes us win, right?
Yep.
Thomas Edison had to fail how many times to get and have light?
Yeah.
So it's also a way of teaching ourselves, of changing our mindset, of being okay of not being the best. Because
Right.
thank God, most of the things I'm not the best. But it's not about being the best, it's about enduring and keeping working on ourselves.
I like that. Very good. So, does someone that practices yoga, do they need to know or learn the philosophy about yoga to get results? Or is that optional? Is that something that you recommend? Or is it required? Do I need to know the philosophy, or can I just practice other elements of it?
You will end up learning the philosophy
Either
because I'll
way.
be
Okay.
talking about it through the
Okay.
class.
Okay. All right. So that's part of the
But
class? Okay.
during a class, I normally don't stop talking. And I bring the philosophy into place, because I think it is important. It is mandatory? No. The techniques themselves will transform you. So intellectually, you don't need to have the intellectual knowledge to transform, at least into a certain degree, yourself through the practice of yoga. The techniques itself, the correct practice of the yogic techniques will change you. However, there's a component of svadhyaya, and svadhyaya, it's study of the self and study of the canons. And this study, it's not simply reading, but is reading one verse and reflect on it and understand what it tells to you. And I probably stay months in one sutra. So a sutra, it's like a very condensed sentence that we need to unpack. And the reflection on it, it's that unpackaging. But no, I don't think in order to benefit from the practice of yoga, you must know the philosophy. However, it will probably help you and will make the journey easier, because it's like two sides of the same coin, the practice and the philosophy.
Right. Right.
They are together
I see.
and one sustains the other. However, the philosophy should always be taken with a pinch of salt, understanding that was written by monasterical people and in a certain context that it's different from our context. So I believe that it's always important to adapt to our reality and think what we can bring to the reality of our society today, that it's different from what it was 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago.
Sure. Sure. Okay, that makes sense. What are some of the better techniques that you've learned that you've mentioned could help improve sleep patterns, stress management?
It's one of the best techniques. It's Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra, now it's translated as yoga of the sleep. So it's a technique where we are induced to relax all our body, and where you are taken into a journey that, if it works, you enter a state of not sleep, like the limbo. You are almost sleeping, and we are capable of unlocking things that are on your unconscious level, that nobody's aware, but the unconscious level, it's normally what drives us, but we are not aware of it. But this technique relaxes you in a way that naturally will lead you to have a great night of sleep. Another technique will be, and this will be, so pranayama, the breathing exercises, they are a door into higher levels of meditation. However, in our circumstances and in our reality, it's an amazing tool to calm you down, to get you out of your mind and into your being, into your body. Because I believe most of people have troubles sleeping because they go to bed and they start ruminating. The mind doesn't stop. Oh my God. And go on and on and on and on, and stand up and eat and go and try to read a book and go and watch a movie and on and on. And they sleep by exhaustion. So there's simple breathing techniques, only the full breath. And I love to do this. While you inhale, you visualize like a white light coming in. And as you exhale a gray light, and all your troubles and thoughts and everything that disturbs you and objectifying things work. Our mind objectifying and sending them out actually works. And by calming down, by having a slow breath, you will decrease your heartbeat and therefore will decrease the cortisol, and your mind will start to slow down and come down.
I can't wait for you to show me that one. I want to. I like that.
We will do that. We
Yes,
will do
please.
that.
My way that I like to help calm myself down at night is I read a book that's not not too mentally engaging. That helps me calm down. Sometimes I meditate before bed. Sometimes I journal before bed. That's a new one I'd like to try. That sounds cool.
Perfect.
Um, Tell me something more about, you mentioned before that's a unique perspective on something called the feminine flame. Tell me more about that. What is that? What is the feminine flame?
So the feminine flame, it's based first on the perspective of yoga. So yoga and yoga, it's based in Samkhya, and this is a mainstream thought across Hindu tradition, let's say, and Kundalini yoga, where you have Shakti. Shakti means energy, okay? And it's the feminine counterpart. And accordingly to Samkhya, you have Purusha, that it's, let's say, pure intelligence, higher intelligence, and Prakriti or Mahashakti. And Mahashakti, by becoming unbalanced, create three principles, that it's Rajas, movement, Tamas, inertia, and Sattva, balance, and creates everything that we perceive as reality. So a woman, it's a manifestation of Shakti, and all of us, we have both energies, and the energy, it's named in the body as the Kundalini, that wants to rise up to meet Purusha. And the feminine flame, it's based in this idea of the Shakti energy and reminding women of their creative power and their role in the balance of the principles of life. I know that we live in a society that perceives women as equal. This is our society. We can't, and I will not talk about the world. I think it's not the place, but inherited, and we still have certain patterns of inferiority. We have certain fears of assuming our power. So the Feminine Flame project, it's a project where there's a course that it's designed only to women to wake up and feeling empowered through their feminine energy as Shakti, and to approach and talk about these things that are important to everyone, male and female, but to look at them from a feminine perspective. So I went through the first course of the feminine flame transformation. It is 3 months, and I will start the next one in February. And in February, we will start the live talks to talk about important and maybe uncomfortable subjects from a point of view of a woman. Simple things like identity, but the identity of what is identity, what is the identity that women now bring into the world, what it's to be a woman in assuming their complete power as creative, as fluid. And I truly believe that many women are doing their paths, but many times we use a more masculine way of doing things. I picture a woman like water. Water goes down and there's a big stone blocking the way. The woman goes around, and with time, that big stone disappears. So it's much creative, soft, and that's needed in the world. We don't go there and break
Break the
the
stone
stone,
instead. Right. A different.
right? It's a different approach. It's an approach of inclusion. It's an approach of dissolving differences, and ultimately, it's an approach of love.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important.
So you are learning this, and you're also teaching this currently.
I'm teaching this.
You're teaching this now. Yes. Okay. So this course you are currently teaching.
Yes.
Okay. We'll definitely mention that at the end too, so we can get more details about that. That sounds great.
So doing yoga with me, it's always bringing you out of your comfort zone. You will do different techniques, and some things at the beginning they can be uncomfortable. I always ask, especially when I'm doing a class for the first time outside, I always ask for suspension of judgment. I challenge you physically, mentally, emotionally. Yes, you will feel extremely relaxed at the end of the practice. And you will always meditate. And most important is, I think this defines me. I don't want you dependent of me. What I want, it's you to learn and at some stage be independent and do your own practice and do your journey. I don't like dependency, okay? I like to empower people. I was very fortunate. I learned and I continue to study, and I'm here to share the knowledge. I'm just a vehicle, and I'm here to deliver something to you, and you can do with it and go. You can take it and practice on your own. You are not dependent of me. And I know that in a way, financially, this is not a good idea. I know that, but I don't care because, again, yoga, it's liberation, and I don't want you dependent on me. And it's your transformation, your liberation, your path of expansion, of oneness, of responsibility. It's yours. It's not mine. I'm here. I support you. I answer all the questions. If I don't know, I work with you. I'll be always at your side as long as you want, but to set you free.
I think that's a sign of a good teacher, a good master, is someone who teaches the student that to no longer need the master anymore. So that's a very honorable way of teaching. I'm glad you're doing that.
And where I'm teaching online. I hold 3 classes online. I have the second feminine flame coming up in February. I teach locally. I also do a different type of work that it's more inspirational in terms of talks, in terms of talking about inclusion, talking about intergeneration, communication, because yoga also has a social side.
So where can people find you? Where can people connect with you?
They can find me at Instagram, Unmani Ananda. They can find me on Facebook, Unmani Ananda. They can find me on LinkedIn, Unmani Ananda. They can always email me. I'm always happy to answer anyone. Unmani Ananda at yogaindublin.com. This is the easiest ways to get in contact with me. And locally, I'm teaching at a dojo, that it's a Aikido place, and some more things will come, projects that will come out.
Wonderful. So, people watching, you can find Unmani online no matter where you are on the globe. And if you're
Yes.
local, you can work with her as well.
There's something that for me it's important to say. We live in a world where yoga is a commodity, okay? We live in a world that where yoga is an industry. And I'm in this, okay? I make part of this. But there's something that we should never forget, that yoga, it's a set ourselves free from the attachment of self-satisfaction. Yoga, it's trying to get away of these physical desires, to be controlled by the desires of the body and of the mind, and set ourselves free. So I think it's important for me and all teachers to not be shaped by the commercial needs. And even if, and in yoga there's always innovation, no matter what, and tradition needs to adapt in order to survive, but to keep what is important and to not make yoga something without power. Because if we remove what it's really, what we are doing, what's the aim, what's the goal, we remove its power and its transformative power. I think it's important. It's very difficult to be in a world that you want to be financially free, no, and at the same time to deliver and keep what yoga is and certain parts of the of tradition, and at least tradition that has 100 years. So I wanted to call out that.
She's talking to you other instructors out there. And that's great. I think we all need to hear that. Keep your practice pure and don't forget the reason that you're doing it, which
Yeah,
is to help others, right?
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Good.
exactly.
Good. And that goes for my industry as well, fitness as well. So that's really good to hear. Unmani, thank you so much again for speaking with me today.
Thank you.
Uh, People watching this video, please check out Unmani and her practice. The socials will be in a link around this video. And thank you again. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you so much. Speak to you soon.
Take care.